This podcast contains spoilers, might contain explicit language, and is not made for anyone under the age of 13. Listener discretion is advised. Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to John vs. Film, and today we are taking a look at Rodan, also known as Sora no Daikaiju, Rodan. And the movie came out in 1956 and was directed by Ishiro Honda, written by Takeshi Kimura and Ken Kuronuma. Kuronuma. Kuronuma-san. There we go. He was credited for the story, at least according to IMDb. And sorry about that, my cat is being extremely needy today. If you heard that, she was biting on one of my shelves. I don't know what's up with her today. Anyways. Today, I should say this month of October, it's going to be focused on more of like Toho's horror entries, horror adjacent entries, I would say. And yeah, I think Rodan is very horror adjacent when it comes to, say, there's a lot of, there's this serial killer vibe, slasher horror, villain vibe at the beginning with Meganulon. And just it's a very graphic movie. But anyway, let me get down to what John vs. Film is all about. And I am just hitting my chord badly. So I don't know if you can pick it up. I can hear it through the audio. So apologies for that. But anyways, for those of you who do not know John vs. Film, here's how I do things. I first give you a little synopsis of the movie that I wrote up. Then I talk about 5 things I like, 5 things I dislike, and then I wrap it all up with my overall thoughts. So, without further ado, we're on to the synopsis. It's a 2-in-1 film, with the first half being about a mining town plagued by giant killer insects, and the other half being about a terror in the sky. Do these two halves fit together perfectly, or are they incompatible? Let's find out. So yeah, that's the little synopsis that I wrote up. It's perfect, brilliant, I know. It's amazing. Anyway, we're off to likes right now. First like is I gotta give massive props to Kenji Sahara, who plays Shigeru Kawamura in the movie. He's the main protagonist. He's known around the kaiju circle when it comes to especially the show era. He was he plays Jun and Uta Q, Ultra Q. He's been in several Godzilla movies. He's been around the tokusatsu fair, especially with Ultraman and Godzilla. So, and he even pops up in a future movie I'm talking about, the War of the Gargantuas. So, anyways, we're gonna, anyway, the reason I want to shout out Kenji Sahara here is that he does a phenomenal, wow, I can't speak right now. Phenomenal job. Just excellent acting. He really, especially in a certain scene that I'll talk about a little bit, in the next point, it's just he's very emotive, very expressive. He does a very excellent job in this movie. And yeah, the next scene I want to talk about is the Rodan hatching scene. It is probably the best scene in the movie, and it's probably the scariest. So, for context, in the part of the movie, We already discovered the Meganulon has been plaguing this mining town that Kenji Sahara's character played, and the Meganulon, like just one was very much tough to kill. So this is like a flashback scene for Kenji Sahara's character when he's regaining his memory because he suffers amnesia in the movie. And we find him in a cave. There's a bunch of Meganulon, and by the way, the Meganulon are human size. And then Kenji Sahara's character, he sees an egg hatch, and that's Rodan. Rodan hatches from the egg, and he starts eating at the Meganulon. It's very horrific, and Kenji Sahara, sells that scene as well as the music done by Akira Ifukube. So it's a really well done scene. Definitely the best in the movie. Third like is I like how graphic it gets. I mean, it's not like the most graphic movie by any means, but for a Toho kaiju movie, it gets pretty graphic. There's blood. We get to see dead bodies. So it's definitely not childish, and it's not necessarily toned down, and the atmosphere as well. It's just it gets graphic and dark, and I appreciate the dark tone it goes. Then the fourth thing I like is the bittersweet ending. So for those of you who do not know, in the movie, Rodan is attacking the city, and then we find out there's two Rodan, presuming that one's male and one's female. And in the end, the Rodan are done in by an active volcano. And the Rodans get caught in the volcano. And it's very sad as we see one Rodan trying to, help their mate who got captured in the lava first and is on fire. But as the other Rodan is trying to escape, there's a technical hiccup in the movie. The effects, this wasn't supposed to happen because the wire got cut because of the heat. It snapped very much, causing the Rodan prop to fall. But it actually works to this movie's benefit because it's just even though the Rodan have been terrorizing the people, they are still just animals or creatures. And so, even though the threat of the Rodan is done, it's still sad to see them be done in by this. And finally, the last thing I like is I like the Rodan themselves, especially their design. I think it's one of the best designs, if not the best design of Rodan we've ever seen. I think King of the Monsters, the 2019 one, that's either my favorite or my second favorite, with this one being my favorite. I don't know. I'm probably going to be flopping between those two designs. But also I like how Rodan is portrayed in this movie. I wrote in a little note here saying how the movie effectively captures their speed. And it's something that I think most movies for the Rodan have trouble capturing, but here it's nailed. It really feels that the Rodan are flying at super fast speed, especially when we get this dogfight scene with the Rodan and the jet fighters. It's really cool. Alright, so that is all my likes, so leaving us to the dislikes and criticisms. And the first thing I dislike is Criterion has not released this on Blu-ray yet. I know that's a cheap dislike, but it is a dislike because I was using HBO Max to watch the Japanese version of Rodan. I do have the movie on DVD, but I wanted to watch the movie in HD, if that makes sense. So watching it through HBO Max was the best way I could do it through HD. But again, it's not the best solution, especially since with all the shenanigans with Warner Brothers Discovery lately. So, with that said, Criterion, Where's our other Toho movies? You got the Showa Godzilla movies. We need everybody else. Where are they? Come on. Get to work. Get to work with Toho. Make some new deals. You can do it. I believe you. I mean, you pulled off getting the Japanese version of King Kong vs. Godzilla to the States. So I feel like if any distributor can get more of Toho's movies to the States or just outside of Japan, it's Criterion. Like, they work magic, I guess. Next dislike, it's a minor one, is that there was a lot of audio cracking and popping. I don't know if it's because of the transfer they got, or I just haven't noticed it before, but when I was watching the movie for the podcast, yeah, it was crackling and popping quite a bit. It was to a point where it was like slightly distracting. So I know it's a nitpick, but it was distracting for me. Then on to my next dislike. I think there was no build up of Rodan within the first half hour. Like, I'm not talking about, Rodan not showing up for the first half hour. I mean, like, no build up. So I know this is an unfair comparison. I probably shouldn't be comparing it, but if you take a look at Ishiro Honda's earlier movie, Gojira, even though we don't see Godzilla fully until like half an hour into the movie, just about, there's a lot of build up to his parents within that first half an hour. Because with just so many accidents happening in the ocean and then stuff that was going on in Odo Island, there was a lot of build up. But here, the movie is focused on Meganulon, and don't get me wrong, I love the Meganulon stuff, but it does feel like it's a different movie. So, because they're so focused on the Meganulon in this first half, they kind of forget to even introduce any elements of Rodan, which is a shame. And I think it does ultimately hurt hurt this movie, especially since the movie is called Rodan. Alright, and then on to my fourth dislike is the pacing. It drags in some spots, which is a bummer because it makes the viewing experience a little boring at some parts. Again, I love the stuff going on, but if the pacing is kind of just slowing down, it's especially bad in the middle when we are just finally getting to the buildup of Rodan and the Meganulon has pretty much dispersed. So it's just like in this middle, the pacing is not halted, but it slows down quite a bit. And finally, the movie does have an anti-nuclear message, somewhat similar to Gojira, but it comes in too late, in my opinion. Perhaps, or it might be that the anti-nuclear message was just not implemented as well as Gojira, because again, the first half of the movie deals with Meganulon, and there's not really any talk about nuclear technology or anything like that, and it feels like a lot more about the distrust that was coming across, between these, like within all the people in the mining town with all the miners, this active distrust. It's only until the Rodan finally shows up that nuclear technology gets brought on, and like imagery of, say, like the atomic bombing shows up. I remember hearing that Ishiro Honda wanted to treat Rodan like the atomic bomb, and to extent, yeah, because Rodan comes in very fast and makes a huge explosive, presence really quickly, while Godzilla is kind of like the slow nuclear radiation representation. And I think, the nuclear messaging, it is well done, especially with Rodan destroying the city with the gust of winds from his wings. It's really well done. But again, I feel like it wasn't implemented super well. if it was supposed to be brought in early on. If it was like supposed to be present in the first half of the movie, I didn't really catch on to it. It's only in the second half until I catch on to it. And it feels the messaging was a bit inconsistent and just came across a bit too late. So yeah, anyway, those were my dislikes. That leaves me off to the overall thoughts. So, overall, it's an entertaining film with a lot of great moments put into it, elevated even more by stellar effects and phenomenal... There we go with that again with that word, phenomenal acting. Unfortunately, the movie has some noticeable flaws that hinder the movie from achieving its full potential. Despite the flaws, I still consider it to be a well-made kaiju film. And there you all have it. I know I've been going through these movies a bit faster. You'll notice it, especially in the next two coming films that are coming up, because next week I'll be talking about Frankenstein Conquers the World, or Frankenstein vs. Baragon. And then after that, War of the Gargantras. I've already recorded those two at Rodan because I just got lazy with the Rodan, if I'm going to be honest. So yeah, I've just been kind of like going through these movies pretty fast. You know, oh well, it is what it is. But hey, maybe they'll like make the podcast perform better overall. Anyways, that's it for this episode, and I already said what's happening next week, so if you like this podcast, fantastic. If you're listening to this on YouTube, press the like button. If you love Rodan, press dislike. If you hate horror, hate kaiju, and all that, subscribe if you want to see more John vs. Film, and also check out my other stuff on my YouTube channel. I got some other like variety of videos that go up on Wednesday, so make sure to check in on that. Leave me a comment, tell me what I did right and what I did wrong, and also what you guys like about Rodan, or just your thoughts on the movie. And with all that said, again, thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a fantastic day. Take care.